to show who's present for the amendments. Is Representative Boatman online, Jaden? Not yet. If that changes, please let me know. Representative Brantley is here. Representative Chauncey is here. I am here. Representative Featherston is here. Is Representative Getz online? Not yet. Okay. Is Representative Hubert online? And Representative McNorton is here. Is Representative Pishney online? Very good.
Yes.
Thank you. Is Representative Ruiz here? Online.
Yes.
Thank you. And Representative Schmoy is online. Is Representative Schreiber, I mean in person, is Representative Schreiber online?
Yes.
Schreiber is online. Thank you. And Representative Steele is here. Is Representative Stogg still online? Okay, please let Michelle know if that changes. Okay, and Representative Wilson, is he online? Okay. Representative Wynn is substituted today by Representative McDonald, and she is here. Is Representative Wolf here? Online. Thank you. Very good. And Representative Getz is online. So we definitely have an quorum present. We're going to go right to our first bill, which is, I think will not take long. If it does, it's going to be interesting. And that'll give us a bill to kind of practice doing this virtually. The representatives who are online, if you would like to ask a question when I call for questions for a conferee or for the revisor, please raise your hand and Jaden will let the research folks know, who will slip me a note, and we'll get you called on. So we will begin with Nick to explain HB 2663 to us.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. In case I have not met you officially, and those of you online, my name is Nick Myers. I'm with the Office of Revisor of Statutes, and Jason asked that I be here today as he had a little situation to deal with this afternoon. Committee members, this bill, and I could go into, if you would like, Madam Chair, kind of the underlying law. Really, I'm just going to kind of touch on what the changes are doing, and then I'd be happy to answer questions. So this bill, House Bill 2663, would amend current law, it's 723574, to modify requirements for the school district at-risk student accountability plans. Just a little history on this. These were enacted in 2024, these at-risk student accountability plans, and it began with a pilot program for school years 2024 and 2025, and 2025 and 2026. So the pilot program has commenced and is nearing completion, and this program is getting ready to be implemented statewide across all school districts in school year 26-27. So what this program does is it requires school districts to submit at-risk student accountability plans to the State Board of Education, and generally it provides how the school district will attain at-risk student proficiency, and generally ensures that school districts are using at-risk dollars for those above and beyond at-risk services that they provide to students who are identified as at risk. This bill would make 4 changes to this program. First, the current law requires identification of 2 cohort groups to study your at-risk, the school district's at-risk implementation and the achievements that the school districts are looking to promote with these students. So it requires identification of 2 cohort groups. Current law states that 1 cohort group has to be a group from the 3rd grade in the school district, and the other cohort is just one selected by the school from K through 8th grade. What this would do, and Frank in the department, Dr. Harwood in the department will get into kind of the reasons why these are being suggested, the reasons behind these changes. So what this would do is would change that 3rd grade cohort to the 4th grade cohort, and they'll get into the reasons for that. So the cohort would be looked for from the 4th grade instead of the 3rd grade. The second change requires that one of those cohort groups that a school district is selecting has to be students who qualify for free meals under the National School Lunch Program. So what this bill instead would do would state it would kick that free meals cohort out of there. Currently in the current law, another cohort group could be one of the subgroups that's identified for state assessment purposes, or a cohort group of students who are eligible to receive at-risk services. So this bill would state that those two cohort groups could be selected, either a subgroup on state assessment purposes or at-risk identified student. It would kick out that cohort for the free meals cohort. The third thing that this bill would do, it would provide the department with a little leeway to consult with school districts who are have a very low student population and may not be able to reach a 10 or a greater than 10 student cohort group. So the current law requires that essentially that a cohort has to have more than 10 students. And then if it doesn't, the school district is supposed to look for another cohort group that does have more than 10 students. And if they cannot do that, what this bill would state is that KSDE would be consulted or would consult with the school district to kind of assist the school district's process of still complying with these requirements and seeking out an alternative cohort to look at. And the fourth and final change, Madam Chair and members of the committee, the bill currently requires, or the law currently requires that kind of the 4-year achievement goal that this program is looking at has to be related to academic improvement on the state assessments. And it says for both English language arts and mathematics assessments. And this would modify that requirement to state that the achievement goal that the school district is seeking doesn't have to be linked to both of those assessments. Under this bill, they could seek one specific assessment to look for that achievement. So they could pick to look for ELA achievement on those state assessments, or a math achievement goal via those state assessments. The other amendments in this bill just generally remove outdated provisions relating to the pilot programs. So those are just technical in nature. If this bill is enacted, the last thing, it would become effective upon publication in the statute book on July 1, 2026. And Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions for for our reviser? Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I'm used to our other committee. I won't do that again. Nick, I was just trying to remember in 2024 what the bill number was when we enacted this pilot. I don't know if you had that handy, but if you don't, could you email it to me?
Yeah, so it was 2024 Senate Bill 387.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions for the reviser? Seeing none, Nick, thank you very much. And we do have a proponent for this bill. I'm sorry, I flipped away from my list. Superintendent Morgan Ballard, are you here? Written only, very good. Then we will go to neutral testimony. Dr. Harwood.
So although the department offers neutral testimony, I'm going to say that because I'm speaking on behalf of the pilot group, and these are pilot recommendations, KSD is supportive of them. So as I was sitting here, I was just thinking about, so this bill, House sub for Senate Bill 387, actually went through K-12 budget. And so I think there were only 5 people on this committee that actually would have been part of that. And then it got extensively modified in conference committee anyway. So just as a little bit of a history, there's a 2-year pilot that the pilot is finishing up this year, goes into effect next year. And each district will put together these cohorts and measure a 4-year longitudinal study. At the end of those 4 years, if cohorts don't meet their goal, and you can't change the goal during that time, there is a negative impact on at-risk funds for 2031, 32. Because if they don't meet the goal after the 5th year, the next year, they're not eligible for the increase in the base being applied to at-risk funding. So there's a negative consequence in this. We're not talking about that at all. This is really about how can we set up cohorts that make the most sense moving forward. So most of these, the committee felt like were needed changes just for the mechanics of the program. So I'll start with the first one, which is the 3rd grade versus 4th grade required cohort. The reason for that is that the districts have to use state assessments as their measure. So if you're working with 3rd graders, they have not yet taken the state assessment. So if you're trying to set a goal for 4 years later on a test that they haven't taken yet, that seems to be somewhat unfair to the district. And so by making it be a 4th grade requirement, they can use the 3rd grade state assessments to help them see what a reasonable goal for 7th graders would be. And then they have the 8th grade year to look at if they didn't make it in 4 years, if they made it in 5. So the reason for the 4th grade requirement is if you have to do 1 grade, 4th grade makes the most sense because that's the only grade where you'll have current data and then be able to project forward. Now, districts may still pick kindergarten or 1st or 2nd or 3rd grade. What they will have to do is they would have to have some other measure that they are confident of that they could predict performance on the state assessment at a later date. So I think that will be common because if you pick 6th grade and you go 4 years, so you get to 10th grade, which there is a state assessment, but then you wouldn't have any ability to look at the 5th year because 11th grade doesn't have a state assessment except for science, and this has to be ELA or math. So there's some reason why they'll do that, but if you got to do 1, 4th grade makes more sense. The next one is about required free lunch, and this actually will help clear up some of the all the confusion around at-risk and free lunch. So I've heard in this committee and K-12 budget that legislators have heard teachers say, I don't know who the at-risk kids are. They don't know who the free lunch kids are. They are helping determine who the at-risk kids are because one of the things, the reason why you would be at risk is you're not performing at grade level and the teacher would be the best determiner of that. So having a cohort that is only free lunch students means the district can't tell the teachers who's in the cohort because by federal regulation, they can't identify to teachers who the free lunch students are. And so we just need to strike that out. The bill already talks about you're going to find cohorts or groups of students that fit together. So that could be any of the 14 at-risk criteria or any of the subgroups that are disaggregated on the state assessment. So they can still do that, but free lunch actually, it would be really difficult to put together interventions for students when you don't know which students they are. So that's the reason for that one. The next one is about the cohort size. So the law says that you can't identify a cohort of less than 11 students because it used to say more than 10, now it just says 11. And so we have 35 districts that don't, and we looked at 3rd grade at the time, 35 districts that don't have 11 3rd graders, let alone 11 at-risk 3rd graders. So they could not make a cohort. We have 171 districts, which is over half the districts, that when you look at the idea that since these are closed cohorts, that they could have a cohort of students start in 1 grade and still have 11 of them there 4 years later. So over half the districts would not be able to make a cohort that is reasonably expected to survive. That's what you talk about when you're talking about closed cohorts, is can they survive the study period? And so this is why we looked at, and we agree this, we understand this is pretty broad that we get to work with them to do that. But when you're looking at the variability in those class sizes, we may have some districts, if you don't have 10 students in 1 grade, they may be looking at a school-wide performance plan. You may have another one that, well, maybe we could look at the whole grade, collect data on the whole grade, not even just the at-risk students, and measure their progress over time, understanding that the best way that you make group progress on a whole grade is to help the students that were farthest behind move ahead. So this is where we get into the problem with such diversity of district sizes a one-size-fits-all kind of bill, and this helps with that. The only other option with the bill as written is that more than half the districts this law would not apply to. And so then 5 years from now, only half the districts would have the potential to lose funding, which doesn't seem to be very equitable. The last one is about the, currently the bill talks about that each cohort shall have a goal, but then it says later on, ELA and math. So at the end, the legislation is evaluating 2 cohorts with a goal. The only way to do that is to make a math ELA combined goal, which educationally doesn't make any sense because you're going to be using you have different students and different interventions into that one cohort. So in this way, when you form the cohort, you'll look at, we're going to look at ELA or math with this cohort, and then you can have interventions tied to the needs of those students in that subject area. And so it was just going to be difficult to have a combined goal, and the legislation is conflicting on whether there was 1 goal or 2 goals otherwise. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Questions for the conferee? Any online, Jaden? Representative Brantley, and we're going to keep questions crisp because you guys can reach Dr. Harwood anytime, and we do have a lot of conferees for the next bill, and I want to be fair to all the conferees. You sure? Okay, appreciate your grace on that. Dr. Harwood, thank you for being with us. Representative McNorton, would you tell us about the fiscal note?
Madam Chair, the Department of Education and the Kansas Association of School Boards indicates that the enactment of 2663 will have no physical effect on the state aid school or district agencies' administrative costs.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are now going to close the hearing for 2663 and move to the hearing for 2421. And Nick, would you like to offer that? And if we can be succinct for all moving along, that would be very good. Linda, I'm sorry. Representative Featherston, I'm sorry. What did I miss?
It's all good. Representative Boatman was texting me that she didn't have the link, so she's going to be entering under her personal email that I just sent on the web.
Thank you. We'll make sure to mark that Representative Boatman was here. Thank you. Nick, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So House Bill 2421, this would enact a new law to prohibit the use of personal electronic communication devices by students while they are at school during school hours. I would also note how this bill will apply as currently drafted to both public and accredited non-public schools. And additionally, this bill would make a few other changes with regard to how school districts interact with social media and then how they have to report and certain criteria. So Section 1, excuse me, committee. Section 1 of the bill prohibits the use of personal electronic communication devices during school hours. This includes classroom time, passing periods, and lunch periods. The bill defines a personal electronic communication device. It's just generally any wireless electronic device that can be used for communication purposes. This does not include devices that are school-issued or school-owned devices. So these would be the personally owned devices. There are exceptions that are built into this bill for device use, a personal device use. The specific exceptions authorize a student with an IEP or a 504 plan to use that device when it's in furtherance of that and needed under that IEP or 504 plan. And then another exception is if the device is approved as a medical necessity to support the health or well-being of a student, and this has to be approved by a physician, a licensed physician, or a mid-level practitioner. Essentially, that's the persons who can prescribe medications, your PAs, your LPRNs, and things of that, folks of that nature. I will note also there's a provision that that type of exception has to be an intervention of last resort. So it's got to be something that is absolutely necessary. The school districts would adopt policies and procedures to enact these restrictions And then in a later section, they would have to report to the State Board of Education that they had so acted these policies and procedures to prohibit personal device use in schools. So that's section 1 of the bill. Section 2 of the bill prohibits school employees from communicating with students through a social media platform. And committee, I want to note on section 2 of the bill, there is, if you choose to work this bill, I believe a technical amendment to capture the original intent of this section would be needed. So if you look on page 2, line 25, I think the technical amendment would be deleting, and you see in line 25, for official school purposes in that line. You would need to delete that. So what this section would say is that a school district shall adopt policies, so it's on page 2 in line 25 there, and you would delete for official school purposes, kind of in the middle of that line there. And I'll explain. So what this section is doing is it's saying a Board of Education of a school district has to adopt policies to prohibit employees of the school district or the accredited non-public school from privately or directly communicating with any student via a social media platform. And that's where that extra language that should have been removed is in there. So the prohibition is on the use of a social media platform to directly communicate with students. And that's how this should have been drafted. And then you see that except as otherwise provided in subsection B. Well, subsection B there authorizes a Board of Education or the governing authority of a private school to approve a social media platform to be used for official school purposes. And then official school purposes is defined as one-way communications to broadcast essentially school events or school news. So subsection A is to prohibit those direct two-way communications with students by employees and students, and then subsection B provides that exception for broadcasting of school news and events and things like that. And then committee, section 3 of the bill, as I said, requires each governing body to certify by September 1, 2026 that they have enacted these policies and procedures. And then also I want to note there's a subsection B in there that requires a screen time report to be submitted to the State Board of Education. So under this screen time report, school districts would be required to report for grades 1 through 4 the average amount of screen time that students are spending on devices while they are in school. And this would take effect upon publication in the statute book if enacted. That's July 1, 2026. And Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Representative Schmoy.
Happens all the time. Thank you, Nick. I am wondering, does this also apply if the student is over 18 or emancipated?
Yes, this makes no distinction for minors versus over 18 and 18 and over students. So this would apply in the school building while the student is attending school during the normal school hours. And thank you for that question. I failed to note, this bill does authorize a school district, there's a provision in there, authorizes school districts to adopt policies and procedures for school activities and events that occur outside of school, the normal school day, so they can adopt policies and procedures for personal device use for those activities and events as well under this bill. Okay, thank you for the question.
Representative Chauncey.
Just real quick, thank you, Madam Chair. This does not prohibit after-hours communication like text or phone conversations with school personnel, correct?
This would, that prohibition is specific to social media. Okay. So that two-way communication with that technical change, that two-way social media communication, and social media's platform is defined in the bill, that would be prohibited.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On this screen time report, is that expected to be per student or an average per grade, or would that need some clarity from a statutory standpoint?
So, just as a report on screen time, and I don't know if KSDE would kind of promulgate some guidance for districts and maybe the non-publics that are accredited under under their accreditation model. But I mean, so school districts would somehow, I mean, if KSD does, and it doesn't require KSD to do that, but, well, let's see. No, it doesn't. So school districts have to figure out a way to essentially evaluate and somehow provide kind of some type of report for a screen time assessment on those grade levels. And I would assume that KSD, like the best reporting would be some type of uniform, criteria, so you're not getting one school district reporting kind of one way and another school district reporting it a little different way, so.
Since you're not normally in this committee, you may not be aware that there's a lot of feedback on that provision, and I already have an amendment to strike that section, just so people know where to spend their time in their testimony.
Thank you, that makes sense.
Any other questions for the reviser? Jaden, are there any questions online? Thank you very much. Nick, thank you, very good explanations. So now we will move to testimony. And we do have a lot of people. We have 21 people, and we have 65 minutes for testimony, unless I'm keeping you late from school, so to speak, since we are the Education Committee. And I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. So I'd like all the conferees to know we have your testimony, and we have it made available in front of us. I'm going to have to give you a short amount of time, but please don't feel like we're not seeing what you have to tell us. In the time that I give you, I'd like you to stress what's most important to you. And if somebody has already said what's most important to you, it might be a good strategy for you to focus on something else. Given the volume of people that we have and the time that we have, I unfortunately need to keep time down to 1 minute. Our vice chair is the timekeeper, and he will show you a sheet of paper that tells you when you have 30 seconds left. When the timer goes off, please stop immediately. And you will be asked questions, so don't feel like that's your only bite at the apple. And this committee does usually like to ask a lot of questions, so I'll begin. I am going to begin with Katie Barrientos. Are you here, Katie? Okay. Not seeing Katie. I know one group did pare down their amount of people testifying, so if I see this number drop significantly, I might be able to add a little bit of more time to people. Ava Gustin. Ava, please come to the microphone. And you may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon. It is my privilege to be speaking to you today. My name is Ava Gustin, and I'm a current K-State student, and I served on the State Board of Education's Blue Ribbon Task Force for Student Screen Time as a co-chair. I just wanted to share a little bit of my experience from high school with cell phones and as a member of Generation Z. So I was somebody that really enjoyed school when I was little. I loved everything about my teachers, my friends, getting to meet everybody at school and just interacting with learning. But once I got into junior high and upper elementary school, things started to shift for me a little bit. And I was struggling more so because of all the phones that were surrounded at school. And that eventually caused me in high school to develop an eating disorder because I was struggling so much with comparisons provided by coaches and teachers at school. And that's something that nobody should ever have to face. So I just ask that you provide childhood back to these students during their school time and vote in favor of House Bill 2421. Thank you.
Ava, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing such a personal story in such a constructive way. Any questions? Would you like to stand for questions?
Yeah, sure.
Any questions for the conferee? Any questions online? All right, Ava, thank you so much.
Thank you.
April Holloman, Executive Director of Alliance for a Healthy Kansas. Okay. Adrian, I think some of these people converted their testimony to written only, and we were getting a lot, Michelle was getting a lot, I say we, Michelle does all the work. She was getting a lot of changes towards the end. Adrian Olchnik, Adrian, I'm so sorry, I know I did that wrong, Vice President of Kansas Action for Kids. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Adrienne Olnick, Vice President of Kansas Action for Children. I'm also a mom of 2 teenage daughters and a former school board member. And while each of these perspectives is different, they all merge really into the same resolve to do better by our kids when it comes to a healthy relationship with their digital devices. What I really want to emphasize for you here is how much childhood has changed in the last 10 to 15 years. And we're becoming more clear and aware of the benefits and the risks of technology, especially when it comes to social media and AI that haven't been designed with children's safety and well-being in mind. So we believe limiting access to cell phones for students in a school setting isn't about going backwards or not equipping them to be participants in this modern world, but it's about honestly assessing how our kids doing and what is nearly constant access to screens, the internet, and social media doing for them. So states and schools that have already implemented similar policies are already seeing results. And then finally, I just want to encourage you that should you work the bill, that you mirror it as closely as possible to Senate Bill 302, just to give this the strongest passage chance. Thank you.
And would you like to stand for questions? Questions for the conferee? Representative Schmoy, and then Featherston.
Thank you for being here, Adrienne. You said that other states are already seeing results. Which states are those, and what are those results?
An example, so Missouri just passed a bill last year and implemented this school year. I believe it was Senate Bill 68. And so there's a lot of already kind of media and, teacher, principal, even student positive results from that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm sorry, that was a goof. Representative, no. I said you're welcome as if she said thank you to me, and she did not. Representative Featherston.
Happy Friday, everybody. So is it correct that the state board already requires every school district to have a policy about cell phones?
I am not aware of that, if there is or not, so I'd have to get back to you on that, or maybe someone else could answer that.
Okay.
Dr. Harwood, would you like to? Thank you very much. Any other questions for the conferee or any questions online? Seeing none, thank you for being with us today. We will welcome up Nak Vyong. Okay. I also have online Kevin Chronister, who is a detective, a retired detective from the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. You may begin when you're ready. And we don't hear you, so I'm wondering if you're muted.
Okay, I've been unmuted. Thank you. Thank you guys for the opportunity to provide testimony. So throughout my career, I've got 15 years of experience investigating these types of cases, and I've investigated probably hundreds of them. And so I just want to spend my brief time drawing to your attention 3 important points. Based on my experience, I've identified that much of the conversation between a child predator and children, it oftentimes takes place at school because of the freedom that kids have. Child predators will often encourage kids to communicate with them from school. The second is that I've seen several cases where one victim has turned into multiple victims because child predators will take advantage of the social nature of school to have the original victim introduce them to more children. And so they're able to gather additional social media handles and phone numbers, et cetera, and begin reaching out to other children. And then lastly, in many instances, when a child victimizes another child by sharing nude images or cyberbullying, that kind of a thing. This often also occurs at school because of the encouragement of peers and the peer pressure that kids feel to distribute these things at the behest of their friends. So,
Detective, you've reached your time limit, but would
okay,
you like
thank
to
you.
stand? Would you like to stand for questions?
Absolutely.
Questions for the conferee? I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see an end in sight for this problem
Oh
of
my
our
God.
children being prey?
Not without significant movement in the education on the front end for parents, children, and teachers about device usage and the negative consequences of unhealthy device usage. I think education on the front end is the only way that we're going to make a dent in this problem. I can tell you that in 2023, NCMEC, I believe, received 36.2 million cyber tips. And that's enough cyber tips that the ICAC detectives across the country, physically, we cannot get to every cyber tip. So there's a lot of work ahead of us on this.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for the conferee? Any questions online? Representative McDonald?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take a minute and thank you for the work that you do. I can't imagine how difficult it is, and I know that it must take a mental toll on you and your coworkers. So thank you for the work you do to protect our kids.
Yeah, thank you. That means a lot to me.
Any other questions for the conferee? Detective, thank you so much for being here with us, and especially thank you for keeping our children safe.
Yes,
So,
ma'am. My pleasure.
all right, we'll go next to Kim Whitman, who should be online, and she is. Kim, begin when you're ready.
Chair Estes and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide proponent testimony for House Bill 2421. My name is Kim Whitman. I'm a parent of 2 Shawnee Mission high schoolers, and I co-lead the national nonprofit Smartphone Free Childhood US, as well as our Distraction Free Schools Policy Project Initiative. Our Kansas Coalition recently crafted a letter of support for phone and social media free schools legislation in Kansas that has garnered well over 500 signatures. The State Board of Education's Blue Ribbon Task Force that I served on in 2024 recommends districts put in place bell-to-bell phone-free policies where all personal devices are stored and accessible, the same gold standard policy outlined in HB 2421. Currently, however, only 11% of Kansas public school students are in districts with bell-to-bell phone-free policies, only 11%. Inaccessible storage matters because phones and social media are intentionally designed to be addictive. A recent JAMA study found that students spend an average of 70 minutes per school day on their phones, with the top 3 uses being social media, videos, and gaming. That adds up to the equivalent of 30 instructional days per year.
Kim, you're out of time. Would you like to stand for questions?
I would love to.
Thank you. Any questions for the conferee? Kim, how did you guys find the 11% number? Did you check every district's cell phone policy?
So Mr. Knockboing, who submitted testimony, he's doing his dissertation on phone policies of school districts in Kansas. So that data came from his research.
Thank you very much. That must have been a lot of legwork. Any other questions for the conferee? Seeing none, Kim, thank you so much. And since we do have some people who are not on, and a few people are sending in messages that they're yielding their time, if we end up with more time at the end, because I greatly value questions and discussion, we'll go back to round robin, and if members of the committee have questions that they'd like to ask of someone who spoke previously, we'll use that time to do that. So those of you who are on WebEx, you may not want to hop off. Okay, now we will go to Katie Longhauser with the Digital Health Hub and the Screen Guardians. Katie, you may begin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. As a parent with children within an accredited private school, I support this bill applying to accredited private schools because students need safety and it should not depend on the school type. More than 26,000, actually almost 27,000 Kansas students attend accredited private schools. These schools already operate under state-recognized accreditation standards that required licensed teachers, qualified administrators, academic benchmarks, and compliance reporting. Kansas law already applies multiple safety requirements both across public and accredited non-public schools, including attendance, immunization, weapon restrictions, and this bill follows that established precedent. Consistency matters. When safety rules apply unevenly, students are left with uneven protection. This issue is also personal and professional to me. My work with the Screen Guardians program focuses on helping schools and families strengthen digital safety and student well-being. I see every day that clear guardrails and consistent standards improve outcomes. This bill is aligned with existing oversight structures and centered on student protection. I support it.
Katie, thank you very much. Would you like to stand for questions?
Of course.
Thank you. Any questions for the conferee? Katie, thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And again, you may want to hang out in case questions arise if we get to a round robin time. We will now move to Representative Christy Williams. And Representative, you may begin. Jaden, do you see her online? Okay. Then we will now move to our neutral testimony, which I can tell you right now is going to involve students. And we have a wonderful tradition of clapping for our students, but because of time, we're going to do a group clap at the end. So we had a lovely visit with them before committee, and they make me feel really good about my Social Security and good governance in our future. They're great, great kids. We're going to move right now to Ruby Backstrom from Turner High School. And Ruby, while you walk up, I'm going to tell you my grandmother's name was Ruby. Your cat, Representative McDonald's cat was Ruby. Welcome to committee. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairwoman and committee. Sorry, I'm short. I would like to, my name is Ruby Backstrom. I'm representing Turner High School, and these were my classmates who will be giving their testimonies. I would like to clarify that this testimony that I'm going to give is not of my own, but of my best friend Sierra's, who cannot make it. She says in her testimony, while I agree with the committee that we need restrictions on phones, I do not believe it should be to this level, seeing as students would not be able to receive timely notifications that we would need before 2:30, when we would expect to get our phones returned to us. 74% of our students at Turner receive free or reduced lunch, indicating that their families struggle with financial hardships, and some students rely on their own jobs to support their families. If they need to call off or take another shift, they need to contact their job before 2:30, since most students would go to work at 3. However, it's not just jobs that need timely notifications. Emergencies will not wait for our phones to arrive in our hands to happen. For example, my father last year had a seizure and was in the hospital for a brain bleed. One day while I was at school, I received a call from my mother stating that he would be rushed into surgery and I needed to come up to the hospital. If this bill were in place, I would not have known about the surgery and I would have not been able to see him before he went to the operating table.
Ruby, your time is up. And would you like to stand for questions?
Yes, please.
Questions for the conferee? Representative McDonald.
Thank you so much for being here today. I was trying to put myself in the mindset of a student, and I have a high school son, so it's a little easier for me to do than maybe some folks here. But one of my concerns has to do with kids who have medical needs feeling maybe pointed out with unwanted attention, maybe privacy violations. I could see someone walking down the hall and glancing at their phone and getting in trouble from a teacher, because not every teacher in a high school can know everyone's, or should know, everyone's medical plan or IEP. So do you think that could be a potential issue? Do you have any ideas about that?
I believe it is. I have a classmate who has diabetes. She has a monitor on her arm, and I understand that it can be not embarrassing to have a condition, but to be in a room full of people who don't and don't understand what that's like. And she mentioned in her testimony this phone call that she got. I was there when she got the phone call. She started crying, and luckily for us, we were in an environment where there were no students. But it would be awkward and frankly embarrassing to get a phone call about your parent and having to take that phone call in class where people could see you crying, hear you talk about your family business. So it's definitely important for us to protect our students' privacy and our ability to take our personal business outside the classroom.
Thank you.
We do, I think schools customarily bring kids to the front. That's how we did it back when I was a teacher. Just regarding the filming that's going on, please make sure that you are allowed to film, but please make sure that you don't reach the barrier and that you're also not getting the computer or papers of a member of the committee, because sometimes they are handling people's personal information in form of constituent request, and we want to make sure we honor privacy. Ruby, you did a great job. Any other questions for the conferee? Representative McNorton.
So thank you, Madam Chair. So your friend, obviously, you're filling in for her, but, so if she would have been in a classroom and got that phone call, would have been worse for her, right? Than the principal or somebody coming down and say, hey, can you step out of the, so and if your parents know they need to call the office instead of their student or their child, they know the procedure and it still would have been notified in a very timely manner. Am I thinking that through right?
I believe so, but sometimes with our schedules, how they change, it can be hard to reach a student sometimes because maybe they're moving class to class, or maybe if a conversation is too long, such as a medical procedure that he's about to go under, you might need a little more time. A kid could go into another class and still need to be called back to the office or miss certain classes. So I believe it is still sometimes an issue, especially because if every student has a problem at home and now everyone is expected to go to the office, it would cause a lot of stress also on the office people to reach every student to have those discussions privately with the students.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or any questions online? Seeing none, Ruby, thank you so much. You got to be the first of your friends to do the hard part. We will go to Aaron Granados. Aaron, welcome to committee. Please begin when you're settled in.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Aaron Granados, and I'm representing Turner High School. We stood neutral on this bill because we understand that phones are a distraction at school, but we also believe that the proposed idea is too extreme. At Turner, the district implemented a no phone policy, and it stated that no student would be allowed to use their phone during school hours unless it is before or after school, during passing period, and lunch. Ever since this policy went into effect, there's already been a dramatic decrease in cell phone use and an increase
Take your time, and we'll give you a few more seconds. Just take your time to take a good breath and
during class. I could say this because I was at school before and after the policy was set into place, and I also used to be on my phone before the policy, and it was a big distraction. But after the policy, I noticed that I've not really seen any students at all on their phone. If a student does use a cell phone during class, there are punishments that only get worse the more it's repeated. I encourage you all to follow through on allowing school districts to make their own effective policies, like the one at Turner, and I will stand for questions.
okay. Aaron, you did a good job, and what impressed me about your testimony is actually your character, because you said you were one of the kids always on your cell phone, and you had the maturity to reflect on it and see that there was a better way to do that, and I applaud you for that. Any questions for the conferee? Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've scooted myself down to alleviate the media stress for you. Thanks for being here today. Last year I had the opportunity to be at the middle school that's the closest to my house for career day, and when the kids would come into the room, if anybody had the phone out, the teacher would just say, hey, let's remember the Westridge Way, and then the phones would go away. Do you all have some kind of saying like that for kids that need a gentle reminder, or does it just take care of itself?
Well, at Turner, if a teacher sees a student with their phone out, they would just tell them to put it away. If they do see it again, they have it sent to the office because it's not allowed at the school districts. Yeah.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for being here today. I love that, like she said, that you were able to have a little reflection and maybe make some changes within your mindset for your phone utilization. I guess my question for you is, as you grow older and into adulthood, do you think that some of these ideas of trying to keep in perspective how much time you spend on your phone will be impacted positively because of this experience that the school has kind of articulated that for you and helped you to enforce in your own life?
I think the policy at the school has taught us to be self-disciplined and better learners because we learn time management because we know when and when not to be on our phones and when we should be studying or doing other more important things.
Could I
I think in time, save it for the round robin if we have time. Any other questions for the conferee? Any online? Seeing none? Aaron, you may have a seat. You did a good job. Jose Juarez. Welcome to committee, Jose.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Jose, would you please step up closer to the microphone? We have people who are hard of hearing who watch us from time to time. Thank you. Go ahead and begin again, and we'll reset the timer for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I am Jose Juarez, and I am part of the group representing Turner High School. And I come here today to want to acknowledge the scale and finances that would be placed inside this the school district. A major component would be that a lot of the schools would go for locked pouches due to their convenience and how easy they are to implement into the schools. But that price tag, it's going to be a price tag that could easily climb up for a lot of the bigger schools. Schools like Turner or even Wichita East. And a lot of that, and I know that in the bill, they would also say that it's recommended the school districts would may try to put the phones into a different area. But like, it would be difficult to find an area to hold 2,500 phones at most. Or there's also the risk of them claiming the teacher may have damaged or stolen the phone.
Say thank you. You've reached the end of your time limit. Would you like to stand for questions? Thank you. Any questions for Jose? Representative McNorton.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. So right now, at Turner anyways, you can't have your phone out, but you could still have it in your pocket, in your purse, or carry it on your person. You just can't have it out using it. Is that?
Yeah, the current sentiment is that as long as it's not in a place that you would see to like distract or I'm sorry, as long as it's put away and not out on a desk or in your hand or anywhere else, as long as it's in your pocket, backpack, or purse, it would be allowed to place it in there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the conferee? Representative Chauncey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, if this bill did move forward and it became law, what would be your thought process on what we would do with the phones? What would be your suggestion for the school districts?
I think it's just similar to what my peers have brought up with our phone policy. Now, I know that it's not going to be like a one-size-fits-all. What might work at Turner might not work in a school like Sharon Springs. But at least something that will allow students to have them, but like with the same restrictions as things that we have at Turner.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Representative McDonald?
I smiled when you said Sharon Springs because I've actually gotten to go tour their school, and I often think about Sharon Springs when comparing it to my school districts, Olathe and Blue Valley. And so I agree with you, particularly about the extreme storage suggestions here. My sister works in Dallas as a teacher, and they've implemented a cell phone policy, and she has this giant metal, it looked like a microwave when we took it out of the box, but it's very heavy and bulky, and since school started, they've stopped using them because of the traffic jam of people coming into school and trying to get everything put away. And when you said something about the value of a cell phone, My cell phone, I think, cost $1,000, and my kids don't have cell phones that are that nice, but many kids do. So I really appreciate you bringing this price tag part up, because I've not heard that a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the conferee? Seeing none, Jose, thank you for being with us today. You did a very good job. We are going to go down now to Tessa Stoner. Tessa, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairwoman and Committee. My name is Tessa Stoner. I am representing Turner High School. I'm going to kind of sum up what my peers have said. Ultimately, each district knows what's best for their students, and Turner has done that and has implemented that this year. It also, this bill just affects students' privacy and contact with family in emergencies. Also, families rely on, in Turner, some rely on jobs, student jobs, to kind of make those ends meet. And having a student to know when their schedule is changing, that is a big issue. And students may need their phones to contact their bosses or managers. A lot of managers don't know the phone number to the school. And then also, taxpayers' money might also be used during this time of collection due to time of day. Also, it would infringe on our education and our instructional time. And then also, this will ultimately help us as students and as young adults to develop the skill of patience and accountability for our own items. I know personally, I have learned how to keep myself off my cell phone, especially during work time. Whenever, honestly, you can take it out whenever you want. But I have learned that patience and that accountability for my own property. And once again, I really do think that Turner has done a good job, and they have been implementing our restriction very well, including in high school. And ultimately, I think leaving this to the districts to do what is best for their students will help, instead of making it a full state issue, so that, because not every, the state doesn't know what students need sometimes.
Tessa, thank you very much. You did a beautiful job. Questions for the conferee? Tessa, where all have you, you sound like you've spoken in public several times. Are you on the debate team or the?
Actually, no. I actually, 2020 Leadership, or KC, Lead the Way, we did a big presentation on issues in our community, and actually a couple of the members that were also in my group were a part of it.
Very good. It's experience that paid off well for you. Thank you so much. We will move on to Laren Young, and according to my records, Laren is the last one from Turner. Did I miss anybody? We had them all. Okay. Laren, welcome to committee.
Hello, Chairwoman and Education Committee members. My name is Laren Young. I'm a senior at Turner High School. We maintain a neutral stance on this bill because we think it would be so difficult logistically to implement. This bill affects K through 12. And so with this ban on not only cell phones, but wireless earbuds, headphones, and watches, this is going to mean every kid from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade are going to need these pouches, storage ways. So what this is in practice will look like is students will come in, okay, I need your bags, I need all this stuff, and now I have to check your bag to confirm that you are not lying, you are not causing any problems. For kindergarten, first graders going through their bags instead of being warmly welcomed, all the way through 12th grade and seniors.
Laren, thank you very much. Would you like to stand for?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do I have questions for our conferee? Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for being here today. So you talked about essentially some person of authority having to search students, their bags for phones. How do you feel like that's going to, say it's the SRO or your division principal, how's that going to affect student relations between you and administrators or security who hopefully you want to be able to trust as a safe person you could go to?
Yes, I believe it could hinder that trust and also break those personal boundaries of, there are some particular little girls in elementary schools who have started periods very early. This is something that would be really embarrassing for them, and to have a male SRO or principal going through their bag, searching for devices and finding that stuff.
Thank you, Laren. Any other questions for the conferee? Seeing none, Laren, will you and your classmates stand up? We got to give you guys a round of applause. You were fantastic. And you all may be seated. Thank you. We're going to go, and Dr. New, I'm having you follow up the kids. I think as a board member, that makes you very proud to follow them, though, I'm sure. We welcome to the podium Dr. Beryl New, the Legislative Liaison for the Kansas State Board of Education. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee members. This has already been referenced today. It's the Blue Ribbon Task Force on Student Screen Time, and that team did include students, as Ms. Ava mentioned, and other adults. But what they did was provide us with 22 key recommendations in this culminating report. And those recommendations focused on what we all believe is best for young learners. And the recommendations were also designed to guide districts in developing local policies that could be implemented in each district with input from their community stakeholders so that we could all work together to develop individualized plans for school systems. So we're learning also that many school districts that have implemented their own personal device use policies are experiencing many positive outcomes. Improvements in student behaviors, decreased student discipline, more student engagement, and less student stress. And those are all factors that we all know will create productive learning environments across the state.
Dr. New, thank you very much. Would you like to stand for questions?
I'm happy to.
Thank you so much. Questions for our conferee? Representative Featherston.
Thank you for being here, Dr. Newell. A lot has been made about the discussion of local control, and not all districts are the same. If we step over this local control line here, what is to stop stepping over, say, teaching evolution, factual history, other things like that?
As one of the students stated, each individual district may have different factors that would impact how they can implement policies such as this. And that's why we as a state school board believe that it is very important for local school districts to develop their own implementation policies. However, we do have an expectation that these policies will be developed, and we may need to discuss means of accountability to ensure that occurs.
Thank you. Representative McDonald.
Common mistake. Thank you, Madam Chair. We serve on a lot of committees together. So I guess I have two questions. I was wondering if the Kansas Board of Education was consulted on drafting any legislation like this. And if this were to not pass, or if we were to modify it, do you have any thoughts about if it were not going to pass, what would the Kansas State Board of Ed do? Are you still focused on this, or?
So I'm going to defer to Dr. Harwood for the first part of that. But for the second part, we have supported this document with the 22 recommendations. And so if for whatever reason this should not pass, we will continue to do that and look a little more closely at how we can ensure that more than 11% of districts have complied with these recommendations.
Thank you.
I think the testimony was that 11% had an all-day policy. I want to be very clear because we all need accurate information. So that's better than you might have heard. So that's good news for you. Representative Schmoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That really leads into my question. How many districts have adopted some kind of policy on their own, whether it's bell to bell or something otherwise? Do we know?
My knowledge is anecdotal. I know Topeka Public Schools and Lawrence Public Schools, I believe, have. My daughter works for Topeka Public Schools. She said it is night and day from last year because of the policy that they've implemented. Dr. Harwood may also know more accurate information than I may have, or Ms.
I can wait for them.
We'll call on Dr. Harwood to come up with all the, you're like everybody's favorite phone a friend, and we'll put you at the end. Thank you so much. Any, Representative Featherston?
I just wanted to speak up for my 3 districts. Shawnee Mission, Olathe, and Blue Valley do all have cell phone policies.
All right, and we'll move along. Thank you so much. We now move to WebEx for Brittany Jones from Kansas Family Voice.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I will keep this very brief, but Chairwoman Estes and members of the committee, my name is Brittany Jones. I'm the president of Kansas Family Voice, and we are neutral on HB 2421 with strong reservations. While we support the goal of reducing technology in schools and share many of the proponents' concerns about the extreme harms of technology, especially on developing minds, we believe that including accredited private schools is government overreach in this particular case. While accredited private schools have some regulations on them, none of them are this granular, and most have to do directly with pedagogy or things that cause immediate harm to children in the schools. Of the states that have enacted similar cell phone policies, Vermont is the only one that applies them to independent schools, and there's a little bit of variety on independent schools in Vermont because of the rural nature of that state. And they don't look like Kansas private schools quite the same. So we strongly encourage the committee to remove private schools from the bill. And if this is done, we will gladly support the bills. So thank you very much. And I stand open for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Any questions for the conferee? Any questions online? Representative McNorton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask Ms. Jones, I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you know what percentage of private schools, non-public schools have a cell phone policy, that either a policy or a bell-to-bell, either one?
I don't have an exact figure. I know anecdotally, once again, the ones that we work with closely, most of them already have a bell-to-bell cell phone policy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Representative McDonald.
I guess it occurs to me that we try to apply a lot of things broadly. And this is just the latest example of how maybe different groups, I was thinking about virtual schools even. I don't know how this would apply to them. So Brittany, I appreciate you bringing forth the point that maybe one size doesn't fit all here. I suppose that's a statement. Sorry about that.
Let's
I would
make
agree
sure,
with. Go ahead.
let's make sure we stick to questions and we save discussion for when we work the bill, because we really want to take advantage of having our conferees in the room. We will now move to opponent testimony. Tim Graham had asked to go first, but when he heard the comment about the, y'all are looking at me like I missed somebody. Okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't leave anyone out. He heard the comment about the amendment and decided to yield his time in the interest of time. So you can look at his testimony and see if those were related. We will now go to Dr. Carlskind on behalf of United Administrators, and then we will go to Leah Fleiter on WebEx. Welcome back to committee, Dr. Carlskind.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, committee. It's great to be here on a Friday afternoon. We got a lot of time to talk. United School Administrators was opposed to this bill because of the amendment that you said was going to be put into it. We support, the use of the. We support kids having quality instructional time, and with regard to the cell phone use. But one thing that I would like to bring out is that United School Administrators did a survey back early January when there was a lot of conversation about cell phones. The governor endorsed it in her State of the State. We did a survey, and we have 157 responses from school districts. Of those 157 responses, 85 responses said, yes, they have cell phones policies, and 57 at all levels, 33 elementary, 30 at middle, and 18 at high school. So there are cell phone policies in place, as Dr. New mentioned, and I think this is we could get an even more updated thing, and I know I'm about to run out of time.
You answered a question that was previously asked, so I'm going to give you a little bit more time since you were kind enough to look up the answer to that. Let's give you 30 more seconds.
Okay, thank you. I guess in concluding my testimony, you know, we've heard the words so much, one size doesn't fit all, and it doesn't. You know, we've got quality programs already in place in school districts across the state. May I suggest that we grandfather those in? That doesn't sound unreasonable, with even place certain criteria in it. But let's not have people have to recreate the wheel when they've already got it in place. For those that don't, create the criteria of the policy that you want. So I'll be happy to stand for questions, but let's grandfather these school districts in that have taken the time to do it.
Thank you, Dr. Carlskin. So I just want to clarify, your main opposition to the bill was page 3, which that amendment would strike that out, and that was important to you.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for the conferee? Any online? We're letting you off easy today, Dr. Carlskin. Thanks for being with us. And we will now go to WebEx to Ms. Leah Fleiter with the Kansas Association of School Boards. Leah, please begin when you're ready. Leah, are you? Now we hear you.
Madam Chair, can you hear me now? Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate the opportunity to appear. I'm Leah Fleiter with the Kansas Association of School Boards. Our opposition to the bill focuses on a few things. Of course, our legislative policy always focuses on local control, and I've explained that in my written testimony in front of you. I have another bit of data about cell phone policies. At the July 2025 State Board of Education meeting, there was a presentation by KSDE staff that at least 240 Kansas school districts had implemented some sort of policy that regulates student cell phone use during the day. So my understanding is that that could be a combination of the bell-to-bell ban or the exceptions that many districts have enacted. So I hope that helps add to the conversation. Also in my testimony, I note on page 2, we recommend striking the reference to accredited throughout, because if a law is good for public schools and accredited private schools, it should be good for all students in Kansas. And so we would like to see that clarified by striking that reference to accredited. We appreciated Revisor Meyer's note on page 2 of the bill for a technical amendment. We have some additional concerns for section 2, as I've outlined in our testimony, and would be happy to continue that discussion. We also had recommended striking section 3 of the bill, and so appreciate that, Madam Chair, and I'd be happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you. You came in exactly under the bell. Questions for the conferee? Any questions online? Seeing none, what I'd like to do now, Leah, thank you so much. What I'd like to do now is let Dr. Harwood answer anything that he would like to, or clarify anything that he would like to. And then when he is done, we'll go to round robin. Dr. Harwood, welcome back to committee.
So thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So a couple of things. So the State Board did do a survey. We got responses from about 90% of the districts. 6 districts indicated they did not have a current policy. But those policies, some of them are only to elementary, some of them are bell-to-bell. We had 16.6% said they had a bell-to-bell policy. We are happy to provide that survey with the committee. The other thing I will say is that on page 3 or whatever is getting stricken, State Board has already done a survey. They will get a report of that next week. Happy to share those results with the committee as well. The other question that came up was about if we were consulted in the coming up with the bill. No, but that's not uncommon. So not just this one. And with that, Gabby actually has the survey pulled up, and so I can actually use her phone if you have more questions about the survey. But she has to answer the question because I can't read it because it's too small.
I'm still wearing the same wrong glasses. I feel your pain. Would you guys like to hear from Gabby on that survey? I hear a yes. We miss having you from back when you were over in this building.
There was a PowerPoint that they provided to the state board, so I can send that over. I think Frank already hit the high notes. Most districts reported that they had a district-wide policy, but there were some variations by grade, so I think that was the difference in complete bell-to-bell. A lot of them were more restrictive at those lower grades than they were in the higher grades, and then similar to Turner, some of them allow them during lunch or during passing periods. And then we also broke down what their storage requirements were. So about a quarter of them don't have a specific storage requirement. You're just not supposed to be on your phone. So we would be happy to send over the full slides for that survey, or I can take any specific questions now.
Any questions for Gabby or Frank? Representative Chauncey.
Yeah, I guess I was just real curious. Do you guys have the data on how many of the school districts provide electronic devices such as computers, iPads for their districts?
So the district-owned device survey that was completed by KSD staff is the one being presented to the state board in February. So I haven't seen the results of that, but we would also be happy to send that over.
Thank you. Any other questions, Representative McDonald?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if this is for you or Frank, but how would this be enforced for virtual schools?
I believe virtual schools are exempt under.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Featherston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if this is information you would have or not, but do you know, like, how many districts are we talking, maybe even nationwide, that have a complete ban of the phone being inaccessible bell to bell?
So as part of the task force, I do think we looked at that. The data is a little bit dated at this point since the task force was completed and reported on in 2024. Not to kick more responsibilities to KLRD, but they may have more up-to-date research. Our PowerPoint does have the number of states that have laws in place now, so that'll be in there when we send it over, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Hall, thank you so much. Appreciate you being with us. I just got a message that there was an error in my opponent testimony or one of my testimony lists, and we do have a conferee online, and I thank them for letting us know. Mary Sinclair with the Kansas PTA. Please proceed. When you're...
Thank you. I'll be brief. The PTA supports district adoption of guidelines and policies to direct the use of personal cell phone devices. We're just opposed to the state mandate as written and support those policies and guidelines adopted by the locally elected school boards who've drawn on the voices of parents and teachers and administrators and students to help shape those policies. I wanted to bring your attention to of the 34 other states who have passed bills, only 2 use this more kind of restrictive language you see in the Kansas policy. But of those 2, Rhode Island hasn't gone into effect yet, and North Dakota appears to allow much less restrictive storage devices. It includes backpacks, student lockers, pencil pouches, even manila envelopes. And another concern in using these, leaving the very restrictive storage device definition, is that places a really onerous check-in, check-out procedure at the secondary level that would take away from the very instructional time that this policy is trying to preserve. And then I would call your attention to the policies in 34 other states and how those, the language and how they're approaching those. 9 states have policies, but they have no mandated requirements. They just require that districts have one. 8 states have cell phones during the instructional time rather than all day. 2 states focus on the lower grade levels, and then for upper grade levels, secondary is off and away in backpacks or lockers or what other kind of device determined by the districts. Nebraska's restriction is just only in the classroom is where their restrictions are. And then 14 states have kind of that off and away in backpacks or lockers or some other designated place determined by the local districts. That includes Missouri And in the Missouri law, I think it was referenced, they also have a component for teacher discretion for educational purposes. So, so as written, I think our policy is a little overly restrictive and might undo some of the things that we're trying to accomplish by helping restrict the use of cell phone devices and promote that instructional time in our schools. And I'll let it stand there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sinclair. You got a little help from a technical issue, and I think you got a little more time, but that's all right. Do we have any, would you like to stand for questions?
Absolutely.
Representative Steele.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I could be wrong on my conferee, but I believe you testified yesterday or had written submission, and we talked about having majority rule, and today we're back to local rule, and it just seems things are flip-flopping, and I was wondering if you could describe your PTA's philosophy on what majority rule versus local rule is.
So local control refers to the entity, the body of school boards, and local control is that the body elected for governance determines, has the authority to set the curriculum and instructional practices in the day-to-day operations of the school district. Much like the state legislature would like to determine how the budget is allocated. You don't want the federal government telling you how, as a state legislative body, how to allocate your budget, and so the same is at the local level. So when we talk about local control, it's the entity, the board is the entity. Does that answer your question?
I just find it interesting. We just seem to flip-flop depending on what issue we're discussing of local control. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm gonna step in the interest of time, and think you guys should have a good conversation offline. Thank you. Any other questions for the conferee? Seeing none, we're going to move to round robin because there were a few people. I think Representative Brantley, were you one of them that had a second question? No, or maybe there were a couple of people that wanted a second question. So I'm just giving the committee, Representative Schmoy, I just want to give the committee time to ask more questions because I'm so thankful that not only the conferees but the committee members helped us manage our time very well. And since we have extra time, I want to allow for more questions, and let's stay focused on questions. Representative Schmoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We spent the entire time discussing the cell phone portion of this and really didn't touch much on the employee contacting student portion of this. So I'm just wondering if anyone, any of our conferees, has any idea of how many districts currently have a policy on the employees, the adults contacting students via social media.
Thank you, Representative Schmoy. Is there anybody, any one of the conferees in person or online who would like to give us a guesstimate of how many districts have a policy about that? And I see Dr. Harwood indicating that he can be our phone a friend again. Dr. Harwood.
This actually also came up in the Senate hearing, and there are two questions that came up. One is, I think the vast majority of districts have policies about communication with students, and whether that was with social media, that might be a little bit of an issue. One of the issues that's come up before is things like content or learning management systems, like Canvas and Moodle, and making sure that they are not considered social media, and then district-provided email, which is a way that their contact goes back and forth. Because there were comments about, is Google a social media platform? Because there is that two-way communication in those platforms that are owned by, or not owned, but managed by the district, so that the district has complete access to what all those communications are, which is very different than a social media platform or just text messages or phone calls, where the district wouldn't have any way to go back and look at what those communications were. So those were there, but every district I've ever been associated with does have a policy about inappropriate communications with students. I think it gets muddled some with social media, has over time. The only other thing that comes up is that sometimes when you get go too far with that communication, you actually set up a time when a parent can't communicate with their own child via social media because they're their student. So making sure that that is understood is also a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Harwood. Representative Featherston, then Brantley, and, okay, Representative Brantley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Harwood, this is for you too. For a district that uses Seesaw to communicate with parents and students, would that be one of those you were just talking about?
So I would say that Seesaw is an elementary learning management system. And so allowing the district, if the district controls the platform, then I think that's different than just a social media platform. Now, they're still contracting for that service, but there is a way for somebody else in the district to look at those, not that somebody has time to look at all of them, but anytime there is a question, somebody can go back and look at all of the communications. So the other one, yeah, Seesaw is one that's popular for the elementary.
Thank you. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is probably for Dr. Carleskent. I don't think we mentioned the fiscal note of this bill, and I skimmed your testimony. I didn't really see it addressed. Can you talk to me a little bit about what a burden these required fabric pouches or something similar might be, and how that would be absorbed from districts? I got $13.4 million fiscal note here. Okay, so when districts, according to this bill, if I'm reading it correctly, districts would be required to secure these in fabric pouches, or am I wrong?
Nick, would you like to provide clarity, please?
Okay, I hope I'm wrong.
So on page 1 in subsection A, paragraph 2, you can see that paragraph 2 says that the policy shall require that all the devices be turned off and securely locked or stowed away in a secure lockable pouch, which is what I believe you're referring to, Representative, phone locker, or other inaccessible location. So that other inaccessible location might be a catch-all for some other methods. But.
You may ask your question.
Then I guess I'm a little concerned or curious about the fiscal note that says 13.4 million.
I think our concern is the cost to districts. It's an unfunded mandate.
Right.
And we've talked about that, not only in this bill, but other bills as well. This is a sizable investment for school districts. And that's why I go back to the grandfathered in and provide some stipulations for those districts that don't have it, or even, a minimum. But this is a bit extreme.
Madam Chair, if I could just follow up real quick.
Since you're the last of the line, yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. So even if we grandfathered it in, though, say that Olathe's policy, I'm not real sure exactly what their current policy is, but we'll just make up for an example that currently they don't lock up things. They just let kids leave it in their backpack. I think that's what the rule is. And if we grandfathered it in and they decided at some point, maybe we should only let high schoolers put it in their backpack and purchase lockup materials or what have you for middle school, for instance. We still don't have anything in this bill that has a funding component. So that I would think that would impact your bottom line, correct?
Yes, the funding is a concern.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Representative Schmoy?
Thank you very much. And I'll call on you at a different hearing. But right now, if the detective is still on via WebEx, it would probably behoove us for him to kind of give all of us and parents a heads up about what kind of social media apps that they are seeing are being used for this inappropriate contact with students.
Thank you very much. And I was given a note that Detective Chronister said he had to log off, but is available for questions via email and phone. So
perfect.
That was a very helpful question. Thank you. we are running out of time. We didn't get to the fiscal note, but we've referred to it. It is available. I'd like to thank again everybody. Ava, would you please stand up? Because when we did our applause, I was forgetful, and you did a beautiful job, and I left you out, and I am so sorry. It was a me problem and not a you problem. Would you please stand up so we can thank you for being with us today? Thank you. I really do appreciate the great conversation that we've had today. I think we all have a lot to think about. I'm going to adjourn us. I will just mention to please watch the agenda for changes in there. Most things stay the same, but a few things did move around for next week. So thank you all. Have a safe, happy day. You are adjourned.